What's going on YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and it's time for our Week 7 preview in the SEC. We've got some pretty good games this weekend. I think the Auburn-LSU game may be the best of the weekend. This first game, though, should be a close one. It's not really a big game, but we've got South Carolina at Tennessee. This is a must-win for Butch Jones. If they lose this game at home, I think his career at Tennessee might be over. This one's on ESPN Saturday, 12 o'clock Eastern. You can see Tennessee is a 2.5-point favorite at home in this game. South Carolina played pretty well last week against Arkansas. Tennessee's just kind of been it's kind of tough to figure out. You know, they didn't look good against Georgia Tech. They come back late in the game, they win it. Against Florida, they didn't look good early. They come back, make it a game. They look pretty good, even though they lost. But now Florida turns out maybe not to be so good. But then they get blown out. I mean, absolutely killed by Georgia. So where is Tennessee? I think this is the measuring stick for them. I think this is really going to tell us, are they still a pretty good team, or are they a really bad team? And I think if they can win this game, it'll show that they're at least, you know, a decent team. Because South Carolina's not bad. So I think that's going to be a close one. As far as a prediction, I'm going to go with Tennessee. I think Tennessee finds a way to win it at home in a close game. All right, SEC Network, Saturday, 12 o'clock Eastern, Mississippi State, 22-point favorites over BYU. BYU has just not been good this year. They are 1-5 to start the season. So, yeah, Mississippi State shouldn't have any problems with this game, getting some revenge from last year. 22 points seems like a lot, but BYU is pretty bad, so I don't know. This is on the SEC Network Saturday at noon Eastern. I like Mississippi State pretty big in this game. I think they probably do cover that 22. I think they win it by about 24 because, I mean, you can't tell me BYU's better than LSU, and look what they did to LSU. Yeah, big win for Mississippi State at home. Get them some momentum before they head back into SEC play. Okay, now the game that I think is going to be the game of the week, and that is Auburn at LSU. This game is on CBS Saturday, 3:30 Eastern. Let's see, Auburn has not won in Baton Rouge since 1999. I believe is the right number there. So how does Auburn go in there on the road and get it done? It's going to be tough, I'm telling you. I know LSU hasn't looked that good, but this is going to be a tough game. I think Auburn, because of their offense and how they've gotten going both in the passing game and the run game, I think they do have enough to win this game, but I think it's going to be close. I think LSU is probably going to be ahead at the end of the first quarter, maybe halftime. The crowd's going to be into it. Their defense is going to play lights out early, but in the end, Auburn will kind of wear them down, expose that depth issue that LSU has, and Auburn makes a play late to win it. I think it'll wind up being a 2-possession game. I think it'll be like a 10-point game, but I think it'll be very, very close up until about the fourth quarter. So, yeah, I think that'll be a great game. But definitely LSU has a chance to win it just because they're at home. And that rivalry, we've seen some crazy things. So, SEC Network, Saturday, 3:30 Eastern. We got Vanderbilt at Ole Miss. Very interesting that Ole Miss is a 3-point favorite. If you look a couple of weeks ago, I think Vanderbilt is the sure favorite in this game. A lot of people, including myself, thought they were the real deal after they beat Kansas State. That has turned out not to be true. But I really liked what I saw from Ole Miss in that second half against Auburn. They showed that if they play hard, if they really get fired up and all that, I think this is a pretty good team, and I think they're going to win some games, and I think they're going to win this game, and I think they're going to cover the spread as well. I do like the Rebels to win this one at home. Shea Patterson is still a phenomenal quarterback, one of the best in the SEC, and I think they put up a lot of points in this one and defeat the Vanderbilt Commodores by more than 3. I think it'll be at least a 7-point game. All right, ESPN2, Saturday night, 7 o'clock Eastern. It's Texas A&M at Florida. Let's see. This one, Florida, 3-point favorite. This is a tough one to call. Texas A&M looked very good against Alabama, even though they lost. Florida looked not so good against LSU. One question about Florida. Malik Zaire, why not give him a shot at quarterback? He's a proven guy. He's a dual threat guy. I don't get that. Maybe he doesn't know all the offense yet. I don't know, but maybe you should try that if you're Florida. Texas A&M, Kellen Mond has been getting better and better. It's going to be tough, though, in the swamp. Freshman quarterback. I do like Florida to win the I don't know. I'm back and forth on this game. This is a tough one. I'll make a decision whenever I do my picks. But as of now, I'm going to say Florida squeaks out a close game. Should be a good game, though. I think it'll be very competitive. Here's one that will not be competitive. ESPN Saturday night, 7:15 Eastern, Arkansas at Alabama. Arkansas doesn't play any defense, apparently, this year. Alabama tops the SEC in scoring. There's a 30-point spread on this game. I'm telling you what, I think Alabama covers. They're going to be angry after last week, not looking so good against Texas A&M. They're going to be ready to go for this game, playing at home. They're going to probably score. It'll be like that Ole Miss and Vanderbilt game. I think they're going to go out and absolutely annihilate them. Like 50-something to 7 or 50-something to 3, something like that. I do like Alabama to win big. And they seem to play the starters a lot more this year than they have in previous years. So if that continues, yeah, no question Alabama covers the spread here, especially playing at home. This is at Arkansas. Maybe you think that they can pull something together. I don't know. But yeah, Alabama big in this one. And now we go to our final game, Missouri at Georgia. SEC Network, Saturday, 7:30 Eastern. Georgia, 30.5-point favorite. That's a bigger spread than the Alabama-Arkansas game. And I do not like Georgia to cover the spread in this game. And here's why I'm saying this. Georgia has not really faced a good passing attack all season. I mean, you look at the teams they've played some pretty good running backs, pretty good run games. But as far as a passing quarterback, yeah, they haven't played anybody like this. Drew Lock is still a really good quarterback. They really showed something against Kentucky last week. And I think they probably get the most points that anybody has gotten against Georgia this year. Maybe not as many as Notre Dame. I don't know. But yeah, I like Missouri to score at least a couple of touchdowns in this game. Georgia's going to score a lot too. I'm thinking something like 38-14, which still, is a big blowout, but 30.5 points. I'm sorry, I don't see it being that big of a blowout. So yeah, that'd be my score, 38-14. Georgia struggles just a little bit stopping Drew Lock in that offense, stopping the pass game. But I mean, this game's never close. It's never in doubt. Georgia does win big, and really, the SEC is kind of going to be boring, I think, between now and the end of the season. Assuming Auburn beats LSU this weekend and nothing crazy happens, then it really feels like it's going to come down to those last couple of weekends. Well, really, it's the last 3 weekends because there's a game in between. But it's going to come down to that Auburn-Georgia game and that Auburn-Alabama game. And that's going to decide. As far as the playoffs go, I think Georgia's pretty much already sealed up the East. You look at, I mean, they really haven't, though, because let's say they lose to Auburn. If they were to lose to Florida or South Carolina or even Kentucky, those teams could still have 2 conference losses and win the East because of the head-to-head tiebreaker. So Georgia hasn't quite sealed it up just yet. I mean, it feels like they're going to be big favorites in all those games. And I tend to think that they will win those games. But because they play Auburn, and Kentucky doesn't play Auburn or Alabama, Florida doesn't play Auburn or Alabama, so South Carolina doesn't play Auburn or Alabama. Those teams can beat everybody in the West, remaining on their schedule. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I think Georgia will win the East. But again, I think it's not a for sure thing just yet. Florida, I think, is probably still the biggest challenge for them. Florida could, if they win that game, they can still afford another loss to, say, South Carolina or I don't even know who's left on the schedule. But, yeah, so say Florida somehow finds a way to beat Georgia. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. It's probably not going to happen. But say they find a way to beat Georgia, and then they lose another game to South Carolina or somebody like that, Florida still wins the East. So that's the scary thing, and that's why it's not fair to me to have the cross-divisional games count in the standings. It's not fair that Georgia has to play Auburn and Florida doesn't. I hate that rule. I think that the cross-division games shouldn't really count towards the standings, or at least maybe just as a tiebreaker or something like that. I know some people are probably going to disagree with that, as I'm getting off on another subject here. About ready to wrap this video up. But yeah, it's not really fair. It's not fair to Georgia, because that's just the way it is, though. So that's the big thing to me that could potentially be a hurdle for Georgia, is if they slip up and lose one game and then they don't beat Auburn, they could be the best team in the East by far. And no matter what happens the rest of the season, Georgia's the best team in the East. I'm sorry, even if they don't win the division. But if something happens and they slip up in one of those games, and we've seen some crazy things in that Georgia-Florida rivalry, because they have Auburn on the schedule, they may not win the East. So that's something to watch. We'll see what happens with it. But I do think they win big against Missouri. And that's it for this week's preview. Thanks for watching. We'll be doing the rest of the conferences today, so make sure you watch for those videos and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports YouTube channel.